as well as work on the post-production.
Hi everybody, I'm the mom. With, I hope, a much better haircut now than I had in the film. This is the fabulous figure here. Little baby girl who did not want me talking about the drag bridge. No, mommy, no. I wish I had a fabulous story about how we became involved in the film, but I don't. It was really quite by accident. And I'll be happy to answer questions later if you want, because I don't want to take up too much time about how we became involved in the film, but I do have to say that everything I said that day was totally improv. I was caught completely off guard, thinking very much like everybody else that these were just some kids making a film for Montgomery College. I had no idea it was a real movie. Mike. And so, this was my 15 minutes of fame that simply won't die. So, to answer the questions that you all have later. Ingrid, what do you want to say? Well, I was a baby.
That's fine.
So, you know, there's that. I guess I should probably share a little bit about who I am as an adult, because I am going to be 25 in December.
No shit.
I am in grad school, and I'll be finished in December with my master's in clinical mental health counseling from HUD.
Woo!
And I work in substance abuse, so it's a really rewarding field, and I really enjoy it. But that's me today.
And I am a musician. I became involved, my nephew knew Ed and played softball with Ed, got me involved with playing softball with Ed, and he just came up to me, we were sitting on the bench during the game, and he says, you know, I'm doing this film, it's brilliant. I've got a spot for you. Are you up for it? Sure, let me know when. The rest is history.
Alright, I'm Mark Mason, band Middlecat. I got involved because one of my best friends married the art director's sister. And they needed some extra people. And Ed was there. I think Mike was filming. You were in the, the reshoots with the camera. It was really neat. Thank you guys very much.
I was cast out of New York. It was an open call on Backstage magazine, which is now backstage.com.
Woo!
And went to school, went to school for theater and was pounding the pavement in Manhattan. Came across an ad in Backstage. It said improvisational feature film, pay and meals. I said, all right. I like food and I like improv and I like camping. And that's how it happened.
I got involved in it was a racketeering kind of thing, and it was very dark. No, my friend and I came up with this idea at film school, Dan Myrick, and we went out and tried to raise some money, got some other people involved, including Mike Manella, who helped us get the movie going, and then cast this guy, and just did the movie, and luckily we ended up making this experimental film that worked somehow. So that's how I got
Hey, since I'm recording this, do you mind taking pictures?
Sure. On my own.
All right, so Mike Williams, you talked about the improv portion of the audition and stuff. So what was it like after you were cast and you got into Maryland? How did you prepare for such a unique type of film?
I did not prepare. There was no way to prep for it, right? Yeah. Actually, the only thing I did prepare for sound designer. My man.
Tony Cora, get up here. Tony, come on.
I don't need pictures
So,
that badly.
yeah, you're Tony Cora hand. He's the
I never took pictures
master
too much.
of the simple song you hear. He took me through a boot camp in D.C. with the dad. It was fun. It was fantastic. I got great pictures of that. You had the same amount of hair then. Improvisation for me was about, the trust that Ed and Dan had in us. And so it's hard to say. I mean, I really do believe that we didn't prepare because I think the preparation was the audition where they found that we could be kind of true to life and that's what they were looking for. But then it became about trust between the three of us and trust that the directors had in us saying, here's these little film canisters and you're going to get notes in these film canisters, but you got to go with it. So thank you, Ed.
So, Mike, what was harder, being in the woods and the physical part of the film, or the improvisational part of the film, not knowing what was coming next?
I mean, I would say being in the woods and living in the woods, the only thing it did was add to our it made it easier to do because they actually did give us less and less food as the time went on. We actually did lose sleep. They kept waking us up. We didn't want to get up. They were shaking the tent or whatever we had to do. As you get to night 3, night 4, night 5, night 6, you're exhausted. You're not eating that much. You're cranky. So they allowed us the freedom to do what we needed to do. I don't know that either one was harder. It just made the perfect environment for us to be able to create characters and create, relationships that they just manifested out of thin air. But because we were in those situations for real, this is not making any sense. I apologize. Tough question. I mean, that's it. You can talk to that.
I mean, I remember in we wrapped up the house like around Halloween, right? It was Halloween, right? Which is weird that we were shooting this movie on Halloween night. It was crazy. And we went to Lonnie's house for a little wrap party, and we were all kind of unwinding, and you, especially you, man, you hadn't seen anybody else other than Heather and Mike, and Heather and Josh in like a week, And he was like, dude, you have no idea how freaky it is to wake up in the middle of the night with little kids outside your tent. And at that moment, I realized that, holy shit, man, we really did play with these people, and that was like late in the shoot, But so yeah, and that's really what's important. Is like I can't believe how much these guys trusted us because we were a bunch of knuckleheads, like trying to figure out how to make this movie and how to raise money and all this stuff. And they trusted us. They somehow saw something in us where they were like, all right, yeah, we're going to work with you guys. Do this movie. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. He looks good in camouflage. Giant oak trees.
So for those of you who don't know, Tony Cora did the creepy music from the end of the film. And he was responsible for the children laughing in the middle of the woods. So Tony, can you talk a little bit about the sound design for that and how you came to create that eerie music that we just heard at the end of the credits?
My mom used to babysit some kids. And so I went and I recorded these kids just playing. And then we cleaned that up and we made it what it had to be. We burned 3 CDs. No, there were CDs. Yeah, CDs, man. Come on, this is the 90s, man. We got 3 different boom boxes that had CDs, and then we just went around like the tent. If you did not turn them up very loud, they sounded like they were there. So that was a trick that you had to not turn them. They couldn't be very loud. And then you just kind of creep them out in the tent. Sorry, buddy. Sorry I gave you nightmares.
So how did you come up with the music at the end? Because the movie does not have any music at all. But at the end, it's really punctuated. Well, other than the song by Klaus Digging. But the music at the end really punctuates the film at the end. How did you come up with that? Because you created an instrument just to make that, right?
We tried to put music on, and he was like, "No, this is not gonna work, man. Like, this is not real," you know. So we only the credits, and that scene where she's standing in the corner and they're in that room, and it's pretty creepy. That's just kind of what I tried to, like when the movie ended, I was like, I wanted something that would just kind of keep you in there. And that craziness.
The thing that Tony's not talking about is that we had this old house in Orlando where we were posting the film, and Tony had a room where he had all his recording gear. And he was kind of like, he had started to become a little bit like Tom Waits. Like, you know, he's got the beard, and he's like got hammer and nails and like springs and wood from a garbage dump, and he's like hammering together and go, hey, check this out. He made some like weird instrument, like pull strings, and then he put it in the computer, and like those noises came out of instruments that he built.
Yeah, we pitched it down, like 12 semitones, like really low, and then it just sounded so much creepier. And if you pitch anything down, 12 semitones is creepier.
But what's funny, man, is, I mean, not funny, but and Tony, I don't know if you want to tell the story, but artists in the company that bought the movie was like, hey, we want to do like a full album of music, of like this creepy music, and we were like, yeah, you know, and we told Tony, and Tony's like, yeah, I'll do a whole album. So tell us what happened with that. First of all, he was mixing in the, you know, he was doing it in the studio where we recorded the rest of the movie, and what I remember hearing of the few tracks that I heard, it was like going into hell. And it was like, I was like, what the hell are you doing, dude? It had like people like, oh, people like being, I mean, it was creepy. It was so scary. And then tell me what happened.
I creeped myself out. I was like, I'm not releasing this. I'm trying to be a good human and bring like positivity to humanity. This is like music going to hell. Let me just chill on this and like hang out for a little bit and see how I feel by a couple years.
And you never released it. So that's the story.
So Mark, you have the distinction of being the only person to really do a reshoot that ended up at the end of the film. And your part of the film is really pivotal for people to understand what Mike is doing at the end and really ties it all together. So how do you feel about how your part fits into the whole of the film?
Well, it's the best part of the film. I mean, people always tell them, I spoke, I lived, and you gotta listen to me. And nobody ever does. There were two people sitting behind us that didn't listen to me tonight.
Ed, talk about the relationship you had on your day of filming, because you had not met Jim or Bob right before filming, but you guys really kind of connected in such a short amount of time. So can you talk about your scene?
Well, yeah, it was weird. We met over at the old mill, and I drove up, he drove up, we kind of looked at each other. Yeah, you so-and-so. Yes, we got to talking. He said, well, I guess we're supposed to be over there on the other side of the bridge. I said, okay, and we got to be familiar with this information, so of course I had a sheet of paper and I'm kind of going over it. He's going over his. We just went over there and started talking, and we had only met probably 20 minutes when these three characters come. Oh, here you come. Start fishing. So we do, and they came in and asked their questions, and when Ed tossed me into this, he said, look, you're not acting. You're not playing somebody else, you're yourself. You are Ed Swanson. Okay. That's easy enough. I can do this. And that's how it all came. And for all intents and purposes, with the dialogue that we had, and when they did the editing, I set them up great. That was the best setup that could have been. That's bullshit.
So I just want to say that I'm a fisherman. I'm a fly fisherman, I'm a stream fisherman, and there were actors that planted, and then there were people that were not planted, such as Susie and her daughter Ingrid, who you're always thinking like, who was hired and who wasn't, which was amazing. And they set up the situation where you're walking through town or in different locations and you're trying to figure out, who's acting, who's not, who's telling the truth here. So I come across these two fishermen and Bob, God rest his soul, and Ed. And Ed's got a bobber, and he's casting straight up into the current. The bobber's going really crazy down the current. It's like lake fishing. And then there's Bob with like a crankbait, this giant bass fishing crankbait in a trout river. And I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, you guys are fishing it up, but they were freaking brilliant regardless. And I never said to Josh or Heather, like, listen, there's no way they're actors because of this crankbait and this bobber, but just so you know, Ed, the next time you cast fishermen, you should know what kind of damn fishing they're doing. Now, I'm going to speak for that because what had happened was I arrived up there with my tackle box and my fishing pole, and I said, oh, crap, I don't have a fishing license. And all I needed was for one of them paintworthy type people to come along there and say, here, you can pay this fine. So, Ed, the next time you hire a fisherman, get them fishing licenses, please.
So, Susie and Ingrid, you are fan favorites. Everyone, obviously, you heard the reactions tonight when you guys came on screen, and you obviously were not planted. You were very much caught on the spot by Heather, Mike, and Josh. After you filmed that, when was the first time you kind of realized this was more than just student film or something passing the wind?
I would say that it was when I got a phone call about a year later from a friend in Texas who said, oh my God, why didn't you tell me you were in this movie? And I said, what are you talking about? Oh my God, this language thing. I had no idea that it was a real movie and that it was a big deal at all. None. Because the reason that we're even in it is quite accidental. And it's one of those happy accidents in life where something just worked out. That day, I saw Heather and Mike and Josh, all of whom looked like every kid I ever had in my high school classes teaching here in Montgomery County or Frederick County. And I thought, oh, these poor kids, nobody wants to be in their movie, and they're making a movie for Montgomery College, and nobody wants to be filmed, and oh my gosh, and I'm a teacher, so my heart broke for them. And I said, okay, I'll be in your movie. What do you need, sweetie? And Heather said to me, well, what do you know about the Blair Witch? And I said, well, it's nothing. It's just a silly legend. It's nothing. And she looked so dejected that my teacher's heart broke. And I said, you know what? I said to Mike, just roll the camera. I'll make something up. Don't worry about it. I'll do my teacher thing. And he looked at me sort of dubiously, and the rest is history. I literally made all of that up on the spot. So I'm glad you all like it.
So, Ingrid, what was it like when you got older and effectively were known as the Blair Witch baby, and how did that affect you as a child and growing up?
Well, no, it wasn't. That's an excellent question. So it was always just kind of a thing. It was never something that, it just always was the case. Because I was so young. What was that film in, 1997 or something? So I was about 3 at the time. So, that's really early. And I guess I would say it kind of became, obvious to me that this was a big deal. I guess maybe middle school, because someone would always put it together and figure it out. And be like, oh my God, I guess his mom looks the same, forever, so. She does, it's true. So they put it together, it looked like her, they put it together, and my name is said in the film, so they put it together, and they'd be, which I did on purpose, and they'd be blown, they'd be like, you are the Blair Witch? Oh my God, this guy found out about you, and of course I panicked, because I was 11 or 12 or whatever at the time, and it was cool. And and then teachers who watched the movie when they were kids were like more blown than other kids were because they watched it. They're like, that was the scariest movie. Like, that scared me so much. I'm like, oh, okay, because I didn't really recognize it. You know, it was always just a thing. So I guess like that's sort of a long way around answer for about middle school time when people would recognize me and my mom. That's kind of when I would say that it was more than just a thing in my life.
So, Mike Manello, after the movie was done and you brought in, what were some of your duties and what were some of the challenges you faced in taking such a unique film and getting it finished?
Well, you know, it was about trying to get the film into film festivals. I mean, I don't know. I think I was naive. I didn't really see the movie as like super weird. It just seemed like it's a scary movie. It's like, okay. And I mean, obviously, it felt at the time. I think it felt more like art film, so it felt like we had a chance. And my job was to strategize like which film festivals were most likely to play the film. It was kind of funny because I was woefully wrong. I was really worried that Sundance would ignore us. But I understood because I had a job at the Florida Film Festival. I knew the film festival circuit well, and so you always send your film to Sundance because Sundance is the lottery-winning festival that you have to get into. And then I was like, okay, let's submit to South by Southwest, and I thought South by Southwest would be a festival that would take this film because it kind of had a punk edge to it, and I felt like South by Southwest was a little bit grittier, and we submitted to the Los Angeles Independent Film Festival because that was in the heart of the business, and we got accepted to Los Angeles Independent Film Festival before Sundance, and they offered us opening night, but they said only if we premiere at Los Angeles, which was after Sundance. We didn't know about Sundance. We thought, oh, that's amazing. And then Sundance admitted us into the midnight section, and which is non-competitive at the time. And at the time we got admitted to midnight, it was kind of like a dumping ground for movies. So there was a little bit of like, wait, is this a good move for us to play midnight at Sundance? And I was thinking like, South by Southwest is going to be good. And then South by Southwest like sent us a standard rejection letter. And it was like, so the festival I thought was most likely to accept us rejected us. And but we ultimately decided to play the midnight section at Sundance, and then it became about, okay, we know what the scene is like at Sundance, and how do we promote the film? And then it became, you know, we had to make posters, and we knew, I had been to Sundance before, and we had to think about things like, for instance, in Park City at Sundance, at the time, there's like a main street, there's the Egyptian Theater, and there's all these little businesses, and they're very supportive of the film festival, and they have these small windows. And like, if you make a traditional one sheet, they won't let you hang it in the window because it hogs up their entire window. So we were like, okay, we strategized that we're going to make certain posters that are small, and then we want to, you know, how do we position the film as like something that's scary and can be sold as a horror film? And you think about like our market at Sundance was not to the general public, it was to the people who can buy a film and put it in the theater. So it was kind of thinking through all of those steps and how we're going to put the film out there and show that this kind of strange film that was shot on video, which was highly, I mean, you know, keep in mind that at the time we premiered at Sundance, they did not show videos, the films on video. So we had to spend the money to get a 35mm print made to play the festival, which was, I think, was it 2 or 3 times the cost of actually shooting the film? It was more than that even, right? Like, yeah, it was an insane amount of money to get a 35mm print just to play Sundance. And so, but you know, like navigating that kind of environment was a little bit challenging because you're like, do we take a midnight slot at Sundance or do we take the opening night film at the Los Angeles Independent Film Festival? There was a lot of kind of angst about what we should do, but ultimately I mean, obviously, I think we chose right. But ultimately, it's like Sundance is Sundance, so you go Sundance.
So, Mike, it was about a year between filming and about Sundance. Can you talk a little bit about filming, leaving the woods, going about your life, and then all of a sudden you're at Sundance, and this movie started to get traction. Talk about your experience with that.
Sure. So we finished filming in '97, which was exciting because it was supposed to be 1994, and Ed and Dan were like, so be like '94 references. So Jerry Garcia had just passed away, and Cal Ripken hadn't got to his game. So I'm still very happy that my Cal Ripken line stayed in there, because in real life he had already done that. In fake Blair Witch Mike life he hadn't. So Cal Ripken is king. He was normally Yankee fan. But I know you're down in Maryland, we're all Baltimore fans. But tonight, let's go Yankees. So we're not out of the ALCS just yet.
We need protection for Mike.
I didn't think that would go over well. Dean, they don't like us here. And so Ed called me, once in a while we would touch base after we left the woods from filming, and the idea was that we were going to be 20 minutes out of a 90-minute film, that they were going to intercut our footage with interviews of townspeople and police departments and family members, and they actually flew my brother Tom down to do interviews with him, which wound up in Curse of the Blair Witch. But basically, if you could imagine Curse of the Blair Witch, for anybody who knows that, which is a great marketing tool that I credit to all these guys, of course, our footage was going to be intercut with that, and that was going to be the film. So every once in a while, Ed would call me and be like, yeah, you guys are now not 20 minutes of the hour and a half. You're like 30 minutes. Like, yes, awesome, yes. Now you're 45 minutes. It's going to be half and a half. This is like, this was 2 years between we finished shooting and it goes to Sundance. And at some point, Ed calls me and says, we're just going to let the footage stand on its own and come to Manhattan, and we got this cut, and we're going to give out stick figures, and it's going to be great. And we all go to Manhattan, and we're sitting in this tiny little room. I don't know where we were. It wasn't even a movie theater. It didn't feel like it anyway. We were excited, but it was like a 2.5-hour version. So for all of you who want the long version, you don't want the long version. It was like, okay, that was cool. Can we get a beer now? But they figured out a way to whittle this down to 82 minutes? 82 minutes, something like that. And listen, we shot 24 or 26 hours of video, and they made an 82-minute film out of it because 22 hours of it was terrible. They really did an amazing job with it. So to be into Sundance, I remember somewhere around Thanksgiving, Ed called me and said, we got into that midnight screening and we're going to Sundance. It was a dream come true. To be quite honest, obviously the film went on and did many amazing things and made a lot of money, and we were all over the country doing crazy interviews and being on covers of magazines. But my favorite memory is going to Sundance with my wife and just realizing that we were part of something special. And I may not get to this later because I don't know how much longer this is going to go, but I just want to comment on community and how important community is, and how it was just so nice to sit here with my family 20 years later and watch Ed be honored by his community, knowing that he created this community. He may not realize that, but the fact that his family is out here and everybody but me and maybe Mike Manello are from Maryland, and maybe Matt, and still Ed continues to create community with Matt and the official Blair Witch fan page. My wife and my kids, we're all about community, and I love to come down here after 20 years and see the accolades that you're getting. And I've always felt the most important piece of this film, and the most important piece that I've taken away from this is that we've created this community, and we're very fortunate that 20 years later, somehow the community we created in 10 days is still being talked about. So I want to thank this guy, and thank you all. And mental health workers like Ingrid, fascinating that you're doing what you're doing, and you're a teacher here, and shout out to all the teachers. I'm now a school counselor and have been for 10 years. So keep creating communities.
So if any fans have questions, there are microphones at the end of the aisles here, so please get up and come out and please ask all the questions you've been waiting 20 years to ask. I know there's some out there, so come on up,
I'm not asking a question.
Okay, not you. You can sit down. Get back here.
I don't want to ask a question. I just want to thank all of you. Tony, your nightmare-inducing music. Every single one of you. But I wanted to point that out because it did give me nightmares. You are all inspirations. By the way, Matt, that includes you.
Thank you.
For everything you've done since then. And Karcher, wherever Dan Karcher is, the Pied Piper that kept bringing us back to the website every time night. Thank you. I'm a filmmaker now because of every single one of you, and I just want to make sure that I thank you before I leave. Thanks. So that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, this question is from Mike Williams. Was there any part during the shooting of this film that you or any of the other cast were actually terrified?
I saw Ed with his shirt off on day one. Honestly, it's a tough question to answer, and I know the answer that this is hard, man. For 20 years, the answer that everybody wants is yes. This part right here. But listen, I was trained as an actor. I went to school for theater, and so did the other two. And the idea is that you have to believe in the circumstances, and if you don't believe in the imagined circumstances, the audience will not believe in the imagined circumstances. So as everything is happening, you're going, that's them, that's them, that's them, that's them. I want to go to sleep. I don't want to wake up anymore. You can't do that. You have to shut that part of your brain down and go, what is that in the woods? What is that? Oh my God. And they created the environment to allow us to have that real emotion, that raw emotion, was I was saying before, like that deprivation of sleep and deprivation of hunger and all that stuff. So while I was, yes, believing that I was afraid, and there were definitely moments of sheer terror, I have to do, that's my job to do, so it's hard to say that it was authentic, but it was purposefully authentic, if that makes sense.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I got a question for Ed. So the acting and throughout the movie was improvised. Were the props or elements of the set design improvised too, like the iconic stick man or the handprints in the house and the symbols? That's my question. And also, I really love your film about riding the park on VHS too.
Thank you. No, I mean, it was all designed. I mean, early on we had this idea of like these stick figures or these kind of totems hanging in the trees. And then when it got down, to actually shooting the film, our production designer, Ben Rock, who I wish could have been here, he kind of just did this design of the stick figure, and I made fun of him. There's a shot of me on video, like in the making of where I'm like, it's just a bunch of sticks tied together. I mean, what the hell is this? But he made this little, that iconic kind of the thing that ended up being the logo. And then we just went out and just put these stick figures up. So, and we did kind of improvise. I mean, we kind of didn't want to make it all uniform. And then the handprints was just another idea. We were like, Rick Marino, the art director, I think Rick is here, his nephews, right? He just took them up to the house and they put their hand in what, paint? Oh, here comes Rick. Rick, tell the story.
The handprints was a thing. I think Ed came up to me and said that we had the whole thing about the kids being locked up and everything. So, I mean, this whole movie, honestly, guys, it's guerrilla style. I mean, you just had to go with the flow. It was whatever you needed. You just borrowed, you asked, you begged, and you gave that, pretty much. So the handprints were my nephews. Anybody I knew that I could grab for a week, for a Saturday, hey, can I borrow you, your kid, and go make some handprints? The tent's the same thing. I mean, Hudson Trails was awesome. Let's borrow a lot of stuff. Everything. I mean, like I said, very guerrilla style. We didn't think that, we were shooting for the moon and it happened.
The last gentleman who asked a question about being scared, yes, the handprints in the house at the end of the film, when you're raw and done with the movie, and you don't even know you're coming across the house, those were scary. Yeah, those were scary. And the little baby shoes going up the steps, if anybody caught those, looked like they were from the 40s.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like people, like when Mike says, it's a house, like that's the first time they had seen that house because we had like kept them away from it that night. I mean, I know, they were brilliant actors, and they really they made the movie what it is. But I gotta believe that just the mental exhaustion and just like, oh my God, I want to get the hell out of these woods, But there's like little moments throughout the film, even some of the raw footage that didn't make it into the movie. Like there's a scene where Mike, we only catch the end of it in the movie where he's rocking back and forth. It's the night that Josh left, or the night after Josh left, and they hear him in the woods, and Heather finds the bundle of whatever the hell, the teeth and stuff. And he's rocking back and forth. There's like a whole 15-minute scene of him breaking down that we loved, but in the end, it was like we had to cut it down. We knew that the 2.5-hour version was not going to work, so we were like, so there was so many moments. Like I wish I could do a little bit of a longer. There's some good stuff in there that we actually cut out. I don't know if it's 2.5 hours, but maybe another half hour. I think would be good. But yeah, it was just a testament to like what him and Josh and Heather brought to the movie. Like they were just so courageous, and they were just like, hell, just do anything to us, man. You guys are very trustworthy, man.
Well, the whole thing is built on trust. Like, there's no way we do all that stuff if there's no trust involved. And I don't know. Here's the thing that's fascinating to me is we didn't know you guys. Like we saw you in casting like 2 months before we went down to shoot this thing. We saw you over a few weekends, but we didn't get to know you. And we spent maybe a day and a half with you guys. And we're like, all right, go shoot this film. So there's something about your tall, dark, and handsome self that we figured. And Heather, yeah, she's female, and she doesn't know them and doesn't know us. And her family was definitely the most sort of terrified of, like, what are you really getting into? Yeah. What's happening? You're gonna be camping with 2 guys in the woods and overseen by like 6 guys who are in camouflage with binoculars. And you're not going to read it, there's no script, yeah. Good luck. And you signed a waiver that says you're going to be put in danger, but you will never be harmed. Basically is what the contract says. We did have GPS points, even though we didn't know what a GPS was at that time. Go ahead.
So this was an incredibly inspiring movie for me as I was growing up and made me want to get into film. And I'm a part-time filmmaker right now. And one of the biggest challenges I have is when I have to shoot 4 to 6 hours and cut that down to like 3 to 5 minutes for like a little promotional piece. How daunting of a task was it to take, I think you guys said about 24 to 26 hours worth of footage and cut that down to 80 some minutes?
I mean, it was, we basically made a decision to like, all right, we're going to cut all the kind of the stuff that wouldn't work, because we needed to be just like 3 hours of footage that then we could make a movie out of. Like we were pretending that we were the filmmakers that had found this footage. So we were like, all right, how much footage is there? There can't be 26 hours. Let's say there's 3 hours. So we worked on cutting that down. And I mean, it was tough because we literally directed the movie by remote control. Like we rarely talked to these guys. Like our whole thing was just to leave them isolated in the woods as much as possible. So Dan and I came back to Orlando. We had all this footage, and we really started kind of doing our directing as we edited. And it was like the most unique film I've done that way, where we basically let the actors shoot it, and then we came back and edited and directed with the editing. So it was tough, but it was like Dan and I would just take shifts, and it was a pretty easy collaboration. There was a few times where we were like, he would cut something out, and I'd be like, hey man, you cut that shot out, I'm gonna put it back in. Or sometimes he would put something back in that I had cut, and then I would cut it again. And then if he really wanted it, I knew, he would talk to me about it, or I would talk to him about it. But we just kind of were like a little, just kind of back and forth. And and these guys made it easy for us because, it was a long editing process. Like it was almost a year of editing. And the problem was that we were trying to, with the movie we set out to make was more of a documentary, like Mike was saying, is that there was going to be, like, that footage in the woods was only going to be 20, 25 minutes of the movie. The rest of it was going to be interviews and stuff. And the more we edited, the more we realized that every time we cut away to the documentary stuff, it just lost its value. Like it just lost its tension. And then Mike and the other partners that weren't editing would just watch the movie and they would give us notes, and that was one of the main notes. Were like, the documentary is getting in the way of the movie, you know. And then we decided right before Sundance to cut out all the documentary stuff. But that was the hardest part, is that giving that up. But otherwise, like the stuff in the woods, you know, it was like, you know, these guys gave us so much, and we kind of just, you know, moved it around, but it was cool. It was a really good collaboration for sure.
Yeah, I also want to say, you know, as an indie filmmaker, I want to talk about the fact that while Ed and Dan were using one of our Media 100 systems that we leased to cut the film, we had leased two of them. The other one was being used in the daytime by us to cut the videos that were seen in Planet Hollywood. You know, those videos of like, oh, it's Wesley Snipes, and then there's like music and it's like shots from his films. Well, we did all those videos. And that money funded this kind of long edit period. So it was very much kind of like, in the daytime, the edit machines were being used to cut videos for Planet Hollywood. At nighttime, we were cutting Blair Witch Project. And that's what afforded us the ability to kind of, for Ed and Dan to go into that mode of like, you know, kind of go, okay, we didn't make this footage, we didn't design this footage, we're investigating it, and we're going to cut it like that. So it was, you know, there was reality. I mean, it sounds glorious when you hear it, but then you go like, oh wait, there's a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears that went into making it that way, and I think that's really important for people to understand.
Go ahead.
Were there any like movies or stories beforehand that inspired aspects of the Blair Witch Project, such as like the design of the witch being like furry with a shawl, or like the storyline?
It was just kind of creepy shit that we came up with. You know? That was kind of the guide. Like, you know, we were like, the horse lady came up. We're like, oh, imagine this woman that looks like a horse and she's hairy, and like, how do you describe a horse lady? You know. So it was just kind of stuff that we were coming up, and especially like, you know, as we were shooting, you know, we hadn't come up with the ending yet. That was the biggest kind of creative problem that we had. We didn't have the ending of the movie. Like Mike standing in the corner did not come up until like 3 days before we shot it. So there was a lot of that, like just kind of coming up with stuff. And you know, Dan and I think, you know, we just kind of went into this bubble of like, okay, what would be creepy as hell? What would creep us out? And that's what, you know, like camping was a big inspiration, like the noises you hear at night, you know. And Blair Witch is like pretty unique because it's almost like a radio drama, because you don't see anything. Like you rarely even see the actors talking. Like a lot of times you guys are behind the camera, all the dialogue is behind the camera. So it was, you know, we wanted everything to be kind of in the imagination of the audience, because we didn't have any money to shoot anything otherwise. But so, you know, it was very much like, you know, a lot of stuff just kind of creative, and then obviously what the actors came up with on the spot also. But it was, you know, it was just kind of this, you know, the you know, the ideas just kind of, you know, came to us as they came, you know. I mean, the biggest, I think, influence as far as the mythology was like the Salem witch trials. Like we thought that the origin of like this woman being, you know, accused of being a witch and then being, you know, killed, being, you know, set out or whatever in the middle of the winter. We thought that was like a great way to build a curse, you know what I mean? But other than that, it was all just kind of like the creepiest stuff that we could come up with.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, this was the first time I've ever seen this film, and I gotta say that I found it very authentic, and I love the work. But one question, did you think that a threat that you couldn't see was more scary, more horrifying, or would leave a better impression on the audience than a visible threat?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and first of all, like I just said, like we couldn't afford a, you know, this was before CGI or anything, so we couldn't afford a big creature outfit or anything. I think if we would have had the money, we would have put like a creature in, and we would have completely ruined the damn movie. but it was very much just like, you know, what you don't see is scarier than, you know, anything that we could have shown the audience. So yeah, that was very much what it is, and there are reactions to it, you know, like to me it's like that scene in when he's hearing Josh, you know, like being basically tortured in the woods, like that, like when I first saw that scene, it like broke my heart because he was just like, he couldn't do anything, man. Like it was just like this, you know, this helplessness, you know. But and just to imagine what the hell they're doing to Josh is so much more terrifying than if we cut to somebody, you know, pulling his teeth out or something. You know, it would have been just hokey. You know what I mean? So yeah, we basically completely loaded the movie based on the audience's imagination. That's why the end was so challenging, because like, well, how do you end the Blair Witch Project? You know, like, you know, remember all the ideas, like, are we gonna have Josh, you know, bloody on the ground? We're gonna have graves. We're gonna have Mike hanging. You know, like, there was all these crazy ideas. We're gonna see a little bit of the horse lady maybe. And it got to the point where like, well, we can't build a horse lady if we wanted to, so we have to kind of come up with something. So we came up with that idea, luckily, but it was a really tough movie to kind of come up with an ending that kind of gave you a little bit of a hint of a supernatural aspect to it, but at the same time didn't, like, you know, completely jump the shark, to use a happy days term.
I want to say, like, when I go back into UCF Film School, when Ed first told me the idea for the film, and originally it was like, I think it was going to take place in the 70s, shot on Super 8, and he was telling me the idea. He's like, hey man, Dan and I had this thought, and it was like we were watching In Search of, and he started telling the story, and I'm listening to him going, oh my God, this is an incredible hook. And then, I think he said something which guided to me, the film, and was the most brilliant part of the construction of the film, which is like, he said to me, I don't even know if you remember this, because it takes all the challenges of making an independent film. You don't have access to big lights, you don't have access to special effects, you don't have access to name actors, and it turns them into a benefit, you know? And it was like the story basically took all the things that independent filmmakers struggle with to bring to their movies and turns them into a benefit. Like Steven Spielberg could not have made this movie in Hollywood at all, because he would have had to cast a known actor. And as soon as you saw a known actor in there, and it would have been trailers just out of view, and every scene would have been shot, and everybody would have looked beautiful because no one would have been willing to look like their hair hadn't been washed in 10 days. And I think to me, that's a really important aspect of kind of the overall story, is that it really was a movie that was designed to take advantage of what was available to all of us to make a film, even though we didn't actually end up making the film for another 10 years or so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you on stage for being part of something that scared the absolute crap out of me when I was a kid. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, pretty much the last question, the idea to not show the monster at the end of it was unarguably the most terrifying thing that I could come up with as a kid. You know, you don't see it, right? And what it did to me was, you look at like Jason, you look at Michael, you see these guys, but it allowed me to create my own terrifying vision of what's coming after everybody in the film. And unarguably, that's the scariest thing you can do, and I want to thank you guys for doing that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Christopher Reed, current Montgomery College student.
Sweet.
Yeah, go Raptors. Current contributing writer for the CW website. I just want to say, as a Maryland resident, thank you guys for making one of the scariest fucking movies ever, even though I was only 2 when it came out and couldn't see it at the time. But so I feel like having you guys up here and all the what could have beens, do you guys have any regrets in regards to it, how the Blair Witch turned out, how the franchise kind of fizzled, anything at all?
You always look back and say, oh man, we should have done this and we should have done that. But I feel like incredibly blessed to have been to be here tonight and have you all you guys come and watch this 20-year-old movie and hear us talk about it, you know, and I feel incredibly blessed to be part of this team because it was super collaborative. Like, it was the most collaborative movie I've ever done. Like, it was, like, definitely Dan and I came up with the idea and we were the kind of the leaders, but everybody else put in so much great stuff. Like, every single person on the stage, you know what I mean? And I'm not sure, I forgot what the original question was then. Oh, regrets. So man, you know, I mean, yeah, I absolutely, there's always, you know, you're always like, man, we should have taken that job or we should have done this or whatever, but you know, it is what it is, and the sequels, you know, did what they did, and it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm good, and I think, you know, pretty much everybody I know up here is, you know, doing well. What do you think, Mike?
I think you can't live your life backwards, sure. There's some things that I wish maybe had happened differently, but I choose to be grateful for what is, which is us sitting on this stage 20 years later still talking about this film, and a woman telling me tonight that she turns her reindeers backwards on Christmas just because it freaks her husband out. Are you here? I've heard a lot of stories, but that was freaking awesome. It's a true story. I just heard it tonight. You can't live your life backwards. We're all going forwards, and we're grateful for what we have. So you always be grateful for what you have and for what you're doing, and you keep moving forward, and things will work out.
You know, I thought about that question today a lot, seeing everybody here and seeing this event after 20 years. You know, when you're young and we went through all this and everything I went through, we always have regrets. Go, God, you know, we were so young. You know, we could have done it better. We could have had a better deal. Things could have been different. But then I look back here and coming back 20 years and seeing everybody out here, and you know, it just makes, and seeing this group up here, I was like, you know what? It just makes me feel like, you know what? If we did it, anybody could do it. You know what I'm saying? It just, look at us. You know, and the way we did it, yeah, the way we did it was just an idea. And it was just having the initiative to do it, and Ed being an awesome leader and taking it forward. But I mean, it just makes me think. It's like, it was a shoestring budget. It was guerrilla filmmaking. And it just worked out perfectly. Yeah. You know, and hopefully, you know, and it inspires everybody to say, you know what, it can happen. You know. That's, you know, so no regrets.
I suppose it also.
No regrets.
I suppose it also must feel nice that the franchise still lives on with the new video game coming out this year and has great reviews, and the fact that what you created so long ago still scares and terrifies people all over the world every day.
And really, like, what's important is kind of what Matt, you know, what Mike was talking about before, is that Matt, you know, he does this Blair Witch experience, and to me that's like, you know, these people are coming from all over to like celebrate and like go to these locations and talk about the movie, like, you know, that to me is much more rewarding than any, you know, crazy amount of sequel success or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's still people that love this movie, and I feel so, like, again, so blessed to have been a part of it and to share. And a lot of people ask me, like, don't you get tired of talking about Blair Witch? I'm like, dude, as long as you want to talk to me about Blair Witch, I'll talk to you about Blair Witch, all right? I mean, you know, why the hell would I not, you know, so.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey, first off, it's great to see that movie back in 20 years. My question is for
I mean, I'm game, but you've seen